Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again, and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. It's me again, Dr. John Dentico, your host. With me today is Dave Mastovich, the CEO and founder of Mass Solutions, a strategic marketing consultancy known for driving revenue and sales growth through innovative marketing solutions and creative storytelling. He is the author of, No Bullshit Marketing, 17 Contrarian Ways to Increase Referrals for Healthcare Providers, an Amazon #1 bestseller, and the host of the No Bullshit Marketing podcast. During his tenure at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, Dave's strategic marketing leadership contributed to growing the organization's revenue from under $1 billion to $10 billion. It's pretty significant. He leverages cognitive science and 80/20 analysis combined with systematically gathering insights to grow sales and enterprise value. And Dave, welcome. I'm very happy to see you here with me today.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
Great. Dave, so let's begin. I'm adding a personal touch this year to my podcasting. So I'd like to ask you, can you tell me a bit about yourself? Where did you grow up? And in your mind, what were some of the fundamental influences in your life?
Thanks. That's awesome. Every one of us loves to tell our own story. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is known primarily for a couple of things, the Johnstown flood, and then movies like Slapshot and Tom Cruise's early movie, All the Right Moves. But I grew up there, and an economically challenged region, a strong family type atmosphere. And I ended up playing a lot of sports, and that afforded me the opportunity to encounter a lot of people, get involved with coaching at a young age, also to play in various places. And also I had a lot of energy. So when my brother and I were kids, we got involved with sports and we got involved with media. As teenagers, I ended up working on multiple radio stations all through high school and college, and TV as well, and newsprint back when that was a thing. And one of the influences you mentioned, what are the influences, is that because of that opportunity, I ended up, after college, these two stations, I worked at multiple stations, 6 or 7 different stations, and an AM/FM combo, were going bankrupt, and were ranked 13 and 14 out of 14 stations in the market. And nobody would take the top job when they fired the whole team. And the arrogance of ignorance, that phrase that you don't know any better, I ended up taking that top job as a kid, 21, 22 years old. And that really laid the foundation, because that position forced me to do leadership and management, which are two very different things of a turnaround. But it also forced me to do sales and marketing, which are two very different things, that they're separate yet equal and work together. And so that experience of that turnaround of going from 13 and 14 in the rankings to #1 and #3, from losing $500,000 to making $500,000 as a kid that didn't even have a clue that was significant or not significant, that set the tone and enabled me to then do turnarounds for quite a bit of my career. all of the time implementing those four things: leadership, management, sales, marketing. And I wish I could say I planned all this stuff because, John, I sure as heck didn't. But I tell my sons, yeah, I planned all that. Then I just tell them, no, I didn't. But it ended up being an amazing career track that got me all the way to the biggest of the big, a multi-billion-dollar healthcare system in a marketing leadership position, to then my dream of parlaying that into my own company.
Oh, great. What a great story. So you opened the door. I have to go through it. I'm sorry. But how do you differentiate between leadership and management?
Great question. So leadership is, and it's one of the biggest problems in business, sports, music, and entertainment, anything, is that the lack of understanding of the difference between those two. And what it is, the vast majority of humans struggle with leadership. Some can be decent managers. You rarely find someone that can do both. And the ones that can do both are the people that are legends. Whatever field you pick your favorite legend of who that is, whether it's sports, music, business, politics, the person that led is most important, but they also probably had some management skills. So what is the difference? Management is managing people and processes. It's an efficiency type function. You're looking at what can get the most out of the people, set goals and objectives. Leadership is instilling that vision and that strategy and then motivating that team and building that team and motivating that team to achieve the goal. But far too often you see, this is why, okay, Super Bowl just ended. And I hate to date this episode, but Super Bowl just ended. And there will be offensive coordinators that get jobs and defensive coordinators that get jobs. Happens every year. And they fell 80 to 90% of the time because a coordinator is a management position. A coach is a leadership and management position. So when you see that happen, at the collegiate ranks, the NFL, basketball, whatever sports you choose, that happens a ton. Is a whiz at the assistant becomes the head coach and they can't make it work because they are more of a manager than a leader.
Very interesting. I'll give you my take on leadership and management, having been involved with it for a long time. I agree with you. Management is about efficiency. Okay. It's about efficiency. It's how do we make something more efficient? Leadership to me, simply put, is much more about effectiveness. Okay.
Yes.
How do we make things more effective? You've got to have both. They're both two sides of the same coin. If you don't, what happens is there are processes in place in most organizations. I'm sure you've seen this 100 times, and they yield output. But is the output doing anything for us? So they may be very efficient, but they may not be very effective. So to me, that is the difference in my mind in leadership and management. And another way to contrast it, and I'll probably lead into my next question, is that leadership is much more about strategic thinking, whereas management is much more about strategic planning.
Yes.
And strategic planning is not strategic thinking. And one way I'll make a differentiation there and ask you for your reflection on that is, in strategic planning, we're trying to find answers to questions, right? The CEO, the senior leaders in the organization lay out as of, okay, this is what we need to do next year. Okay. So they're trying to find the remedy. Where are we going to put money to answer these questions? Whereas strategic thinking is all about making sure you're asking yourself the right questions. Because if you're not, you're just throwing good money after bad. I'd love to get your reflection on that, Dave.
I agree completely. And listening to your podcasts over the past couple of months, after someone introduced me to you, I thought, boy, when he and I get together, it's going to be two people talking the same game. So I really feel strongly in the strategic thinking versus strategic planning. And you would laugh and you'll be proud, is that I have a slide that I show people a lot about effectiveness and efficiency. And I use it for two reasons. One, for what you and I already talked about, leadership versus management, but there's another key piece of that. Most of the functions in an organization, John, as are efficiency functions. Finance is an efficiency function. Operations is an efficiency function. But one of the areas that people get befuddled with and try to make it an efficiency effectiveness function called marketing. So sales is an efficiency function. You can look at your call rate. You can look at your how many calls someone make. You can look at their territory. You can look at their intro to proposal and proposal to close ratio. Those are all efficiency metrics. Marketing is an effectiveness function. And when I talk to leaders that own companies and they say, I'm having trouble with marketing, and I ask a couple of questions, and inevitably I'll say, oh, you have this turnover in your top marketing position, or you have a weak marketer, one of the two, because you're managing it as if it were an efficiency function. Anybody who is good at real marketing will not stay when they're managed like an efficiency function. They'll leave. So if there's turnover in the top marketing position, it's often because the leader of that organization tried to manage them instead of lead them like an efficiency function. They wanted to manage them just like operations is managed and just like finance is managed as an efficiency function. Sales is an efficiency function. So they're like, what's wrong with these marketing people? They're crazy. I send them the money. I don't know what happens with it. Because marketing is an effectiveness function. Does not mean you get to scapegoat and say, no, we're an effectiveness function. No, you still can be held accountable, but you're thinking long range as much as short range, whereas sales is thinking short range primarily, then a little bit of long range. You're thinking about the brand that matters. When somebody goes to a restaurant, they go to a restaurant because of the brand. They saw people, it was crowded, they read a review. That's effectiveness. And so the same thing happens at your company, no matter what it is, but it's harder for that manufacturer to realize that small manufacturer that does 15 million in annual revenue thinks, no, that has nothing to do with me, but it is an effectiveness function. So leadership is effectiveness, management is efficiency, marketing is effectiveness, sales is efficiency. Once leaders grasp that, I see it, the light bulb go off, and they can 3x, 5x, 10x their company because then they can leverage marketing.
You know, what comes to mind immediately is when Lexus first came to the marketplace in America. Their strategy, their marketing strategy was market share. Okay, what do we have to do to gain market share? So they brought in phenomenal automobiles at $10,000 to $15,000 below the Mercedes. And they did. They did exactly what they wanted to do. They captured market share. So I absolutely agree with you. We are right on the same page. And I will tell you, it's a rarity for me to find someone who is on the same page with me when it comes to that perspective. And it is confusing. It is. You so aptly point this out. I can't even tell you how many books there are on leadership where the term leadership and management are used interchangeably. This whole idea, leaders are managers, managers lead. No, it's two functions, two different. I look at it, again, I'm looking at the functions. What do we want? What do we want these people to do? What is because I'm very practice oriented, I'm very practitioner practice oriented. We spend 95% of the time developing leaders. We call it leadership development. To me, that's a misnomer. It's leader development.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's good. It's good. The question is, now you have all this information and knowledge, how do you convert it into actual practice? What do you do with it? And how do you create an environment where people come to do their best work every day? For example, on the leadership side of it. So I absolutely agree with you. I want to move on so I'm on the same page with you. Dave, one of my favorite questions to ask is about mission statements. Does Mass Solutions have a mission statement?
Yes.
And would you mind telling me and viewers what it is?
Okay, so I'll tell you the mission statement, then I'll tell you how we got to that. Our mission is to help any company, regardless of size or industry, to leverage real marketing to achieve their growth goals. Any company, regardless of size or industry, to leverage real marketing to achieve their growth goals. And growth is this big word, John, that I get into arguments with peers of mine that own companies and that are heads of law firms and so forth. Growth is not just top line growth. Growth is not just top line and bottom line growth. Growth is also personal growth of team members and professional growth of team members. So there's a multifaceted look at growth. So if we're doing our job at Mass Solutions, the person we're working with, the CEO of that $50 million a year company, is growing personally and professionally, and their head of marketing and their head of sales, those two people are growing personally and professionally, in addition to us helping to drive top line growth and bottom line growth. Many people in marketing, first of all, make the mistake of being mostly about making it look pretty and the creative. But then some actually want to drive customer acquisition or client acquisition. But rarely does someone also say, I want to drive bottom line growth too. I want the marketing to be as efficient and effective as possible. I want to find things that you can change, that your customers tell you aren't working, that might save you money. That's the mission. So that's how the mission of Mass Solutions is. Any company, regardless of size or industry, help them leverage real marketing to achieve their growth goals.
From my perspective, you passed the test. And the test really is one sentence. Can you say it all in one sentence that not only tells the outside world who you are and what you do, but invigorates and creates this galvanizing spirit of the people inside the companies? I can't tell you how many times I've seen mission statements that go a page long. They're a page. So what the heck is that all about?
Yeah.
And they can't understand why people are leaving them. This is it's a thing I've been really doing a lot of research and work on. And the answer is because they don't know who you are, because you don't know who you are. Too often, mission statements are written because everybody is trying to please a whole group of other people instead of speaking about their own heart and soul. If this is who we are. My favorite one-liner, my favorite slogan, of course, comes from the movie 300 with Gerard Butler. This is Sparta. Does anybody not know who we are? No, everybody knows who we are, right? That's what we do. This is who we are. We're Sparta. Now, that's a slogan, not a mission statement. But it says it really very succinctly. So I think one of the things that I think is absolutely important, and I mean, we may get into that a little later on, is how important it is to have a mission statement, how important it is to be succinct, be directive, and speak from the heart. Let people know who you are and what you are going to do, as you say, in the marketplace. Any reflection on that?
One key point, as you mentioned, is conveying that mission throughout the company, throughout the organization. That's so essential. And it's what we call B2E, business to everyone. Because if you're doing your job as a marketing company, there are 6 target markets that matter, 6 right fit target markets that matter. 2 of them are current employees and prospective employees. And that cultural messaging, that mission statement, your why, your reason for being, your customer's why or reason for buying, that all has to be conveyed. Your core values need to be conveyed. But here's a really key point, John. Not just your core values. Okay. Your core values, beyond that, you have to convey your core behaviors associated with those values. This is a key point that most people miss. Tell anecdotes and analogies that show what a core behavior is that is living out a core value. That's all part of communicating your story, your cultural story, to current and prospective employees, which are 2 of those right fit target markets that are part of B2E, more B2C. That's a Mass Solutions term, B2E, business to everyone. And those current and prospective employees understanding core values, core behaviors, the mission, your why, and your customer's why. Why do they buy? All that has to be continually communicated on an ongoing basis.
I absolutely agree. In fact, if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to convey those meanings to the people who work with you, then the question is, why are they there? People want to matter, and they want their work to matter, and they want to have an impact. And in order to do that, you have to give them something to be part of. Hopefully something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And if you're able to construct it, and it's not that hard. We're not talking about SpaceX here and trying to land people on Mars. We're just trying to get everybody moving down the road with us. But if you're unclear about that, to go back to a point I made earlier, if you're just out there giving mission statements because you want people to like you, you're on the wrong track. This is about who you are and what you intend to do in the marketplace. I couldn't I couldn't agree with you more. What I'd like to do is ask you, let's go down this pathway a bit. Let's peel this onion back a little bit more when it comes to B2B, B2C, which you say we shouldn't spend time on. We shouldn't spend time on B2B and B2C. We have to be B2E. Can you give me some more reflection on that, if you would, Dave?
Sure. And I'm not telling someone, hey, stop saying that you're a B2B company. That's not what I'm saying. I understand. And I'm not saying that a B2C company shouldn't still say they are. What I'm saying is I want to get them to think like you and I here. And I want to get them to think in terms of it's bigger than that. It's business to everyone, but not everyone in the terms that waste advertising. No, business to everyone being practical. Those 6 target markets, current and prospective employees. Now, let me touch on one thing about that. During the holidays, at a Super Bowl party, at a Labor Day party, at a 4th of July party, what do we talk about? We talk about our kids a little bit, talk about our families a little bit, but we realize that starts to bore people. So we then begin to talk about our job, or hopefully our career. First meet you. We want our team members to be talking about something in a positive way. We want them to understand the mission. So if somebody says, what is Mass Solutions? They say, we're all about helping people do real marketing. And you stop and someone goes, okay. And you can tell if they really want to listen. They go, great, give me a beer. Or if they actually want to listen, they'll say marketing. We want every one of our clients to be able to do the same thing because your employees are going to talk about work at those events. It could be, oh, it's my boss is a pain in the ass. Or it could be, we're really busy. Oh, we're slow. I don't know what's going on. I can't believe some of the things that we do there. Or when in healthcare, we used to do research for healthcare clients. We still do, but we've heard research of healthcare clients where they say, man, I don't know if I trust this service at our healthcare system. Oh my. If someone's saying that at an event, that health system's losing a potential patient. So current and prospective employees are 2 of those right fit target markets, 2 of the 6 target markets that matter under business to everyone. Another 2 are people that can refer to you. So in professional services or in B2B companies, it's referral sources or centers of influence. In healthcare, it's referral sources a lot of times. So referral sources or centers of influence are people that connect you. Rarely does anyone systematically look at that. Usually there's 1 or 2 people at a professional services firm, John, that bring in all the business because of all their relationships. Why don't we systematically show how that happened? Not exactly what those 2 do. They're great at it, but let's get a system in place so the mediocre person can be better. And so people are thinking about it. So it's current and prospective referral sources or centers of influence. And then, of course, the obvious ones, it's current and prospective clients or customers. When you take that global approach to those 6 right fit target markets that matter, now you're talking business to everyone, which makes a B2B company that much stronger. It makes a B2C company that much stronger.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times people are so externally oriented to their clients that they forget about the people inside. And that you're bringing everybody. We had this saying when I was in the Navy, and that is a rising tide lifts all boats. And we're all coming up together. We're all rising up together. And the people inside the organization, the people outside the organization, we deliver products and services. And yes, there are people who may be struggling inside the organization and are, as you say, mediocre or not champions, not star performers. Well, what do we have to do to help them? What learning can we put into place?
Right.
And it may just be a little switch. It's not an overwhelming amount of training. It may just be this one switch that we have to turn on this, that this person says, oh, now I get it. Now I understand how this all fits together. Okay.
Yes.
I've always been, to my fault, I've always been a big picture guy. So if you can't show me the whole picture, it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, I don't understand why I'm doing something here. Help me understand that. We are a why-driven species. We love to know why.
It's amazing how few people understand that. I played a lot of sports and basketball particularly, and I always wondered why coaches didn't really explain what we were doing certain things for. I used to say in football, why are you doing up downs if you're like a quarterback or a receiver back in the day, the crazy up downs. And in basketball, there was a lot of running being done. So when I started coaching at a young age, I always would explain the why behind each drill. I would say, sure, this is physical fitness, but it's actually going to show us how we're going to respond to the pick and roll that the other team's running, or it's going to show us how we're going to come off that screen. And the telling that why just changes the whole mindset of your team. And so at Mass Solutions, we do that. We help our clients try to do that, because the more you can explain that why, the more people get juiced about whatever they're doing. And it just baffles me that honestly, so few people think about conveying that why. They make a pithy thing and they say, it's this, but I'm saying, explain why you do process X. Explain why you do process X. It's actually pretty interesting. You didn't just make it up. So explain why you do that process. It'll help.
The example I use is I can remember being in a high school. I was a sophomore in high school in a math class. Teacher walks in and says, good morning, and immediately starts writing formulas on the board. F of X over the square root of 2. And I'm looking at this going, oh, I'm done. I'm done. Nowhere in the world did he stop and say, okay, let me tell you a little bit about algebra and how it's used and why you need to learn this, because it's so vital to understand these factors. Never saw any of that. Not an iota. And I did. I struggled so much in that math class because all it was a typical learning in those days. Here's what you need to memorize it and give it back to me, and we'll give you 100 on the test. And come on, you're killing me over here.
See, that was actually easy for me. If you told me I just had to go read a book and come back and answer questions, I'll get 100 or 98 or something like that. But that doesn't mean I learned. So you have to find a way to make sure people learn. Is you've got to be able to, when I'm asked to speak, one of the things I do to open the talk is I'll say, think back to that teacher, coach, or professor that you had when you were young that made an impact on you. See and hear them in your mind's eye. Then I'll say, think to a boss, any of your bosses. If you had a boss that inspired you, think back to that boss and see and hear them in your mind's eye. And John, I then say, okay, tell me a little bit about what you remember. And here's what happens, John. They remember someone that told stories and told the why. If you go back in all of our lives, our parents, what do we remember about our parents? We remember them teaching us a lesson. It's just what we do. It's just how we are. It's how we're wired as humans. This isn't me talking. My talk's like that because it immediately gets people thinking, yeah, for me, like Mr. Cobol was a chemistry teacher. I didn't like chemistry, but this guy, he balled out, man. He was like so full of energy. And I can remember him in the front of the class making these examples and showing you what was going to happen in the chemistry piece. And I didn't like chemistry at all. And I didn't care to do that as a avocation, but I remember Mr. Cobol. And so that's what each of us has in us. It's tied to anecdotes and analogies, typically around the why of something.
I agree. As you were talking, I was thinking about a college biology professor. I was a business major, management major, but I took an elective in biology. And this guy was great. He was great. And a lot of it was, let me tell you why we're doing this. Let me tell you what the problem is and what we're trying to do. And then he would get down the path that you needed to learn that particular. He was terrific. Dave, I have to ask you this because I'm getting much more involved in this myself. The subject, marketing and AI. So I would love to hear from you about your perspective on the integration of AI, and you could almost look at it as a triad: AI, marketing, and sales. How they, in a sense, form this integration, this factor that is every single day is playing a larger and larger role. So I'd love to hear from you on that, Dave.
I think it's fantastic. And when people tell me they're worried about it, I don't want to sound naive. I'm sure there are potential bad things, but I'm telling you right now, from the day that OpenAI hit, we started using ChatGPT. We've used Jasper, Claude, Gemini, and we have different team members that prefer different ones. And what I've found is, I'll take a couple of things. First, from a marketing standpoint, there are so many tasks that when you're doing qualitative research, and we do a lot of qualitative research, and the difference between qualitative and quantitative, when I was at those bigger companies, I could have quantitative, qualitative, I could spend money for stuff. I had money. But most of the clients that we work with now, we still have some billion-dollar companies and some that do 500 million, 700 million. But because of that mission statement of wanting to help any company, regardless of size or industry, we might have a company that does 8 million in annual revenue, 16 million in annual revenue, and they're not going to have a budget for significant quantitative research. So if you do a lot of qualitative research, you're gathering insights by asking open-ended questions, writing down what you hear, and then trying to see what trends you have. Something as simple as ChatGPT for that is, prior to ChatGPT, we would have a team member that was the lead on that project, and everybody would do their interviews, and you'd get all the interviews tabulated, and that person would go through and start looking at trend check marks of what was said, similar things, and come back. And then we meet as a team and we'd talk about these results, and we'd come away and say, here's the 3 to 5 things that the qualitative research kept coming back to. Now you can take all that stuff, and instead of a human going through that and spending, say, 6 hours, in about 5 minutes, it can take what we learned. We did the job. We did the hard work. We asked the right questions. That takes human skill. We were able to shut up and listen. That takes human skill. We took the notes. But now this next part, instead of actually spending this laborious amount of time, that quick, we get back and the same people are looking at that stuff and saying, hey, ChatGPT summarized this, but here's 10,000 hours of me being a marketing guru. That's what that is. And that's what someone else on my team might say. I would say, hey, I learned this. And so that's one piece. Then there's a second piece. This is the one that people talk about a lot, which is content development. I have a chapter in my book about the trends for the future of marketing. And one of them that I spend some time on, brief amount of time, is, and it's what I just said on the one side, but the second side is on content creation. Here's the way to use it and to be authentic. You prime your favorite one, whether it's Jasper, which is a content-driven one, or ChatGPT or whatever, you prime it for who you are. So my priming is, I put in chapters of my book, I put in blog posts, I put in transcripts of podcasts. So you get the style. My style, after you hear me talk, I actually write like I talk. I was blessed. John, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that's rare. When I was 15, I wrote like I talked. When I did my first newspaper byline, I wrote like I talked. I didn't know that was something that doesn't happen much. So now you know how I talk. So does any AI that we use. They have my podcast transcripts, blog posts. They have my book, and they have things I've written. Say you don't have that. That's okay. You write in and start talking about what you like. I'm a big pop culture person. I'm a big sports person. So I say that. I say I like pop culture. I range from this type of music to that. I'm a former DJ. I like this. I like that. You prime that and continually update your profile so they know who you are. So then when you come in, you say, I'm Dave Mastovich, and you know a little bit about me. I have to write a blog post, and then I do this. The second part is, so the first part is to prime it. The second is to do your stream of conscience, pound away on your computer keyboard about what you want to accomplish with that piece of content. What I want to do is I want to write this so John Dentico understands where I'm coming from. He and I share this. Here's a transcript of John's podcast. Da, 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 da. And I'm thinking this, and you spend 5 to 10 minutes getting out of your stream of conscience what would normally be writer's block. You get that all in there. And then you say, give me a draft. It comes back and gives you a draft that will not be close to perfect, but it'll be about 80% there because it knows you, because you took the time to prime it. You did your stream of conscience, so it's not bullshit. It's not fake. It's not cheating. It's not plagiarism. It's not any of this nonsense. You did your stream of conscience. Then the last part is you take what they gave you and you edit it, because here's what the tip for you and anyone out there is. AI writes in passive voice. That's why we can tell when something's AI. That's why I had a client say to me, I got ChatGPT'd by this other firm. I don't want to use them anymore. And I go, what do you mean? I got ChatGPT'd. I could tell all their emails were ChatGPT, their blogs. I went, oh, that's because AI writes in passive voice. AI uses phrases like, not only is John Dentico a great leader, he's also a handsome man who does podcasts. It's the active way to say that is John Dentico is a handsome man who does podcasts. Now, doesn't that sound a heck of a lot better? Yes. And that's because no one really talks in passive voice. We rarely go,
It's not just about this, it's that.
Yeah, we do sometimes, but not really. And so that's how it spits back to you. So it spits back to you stuff that's passive voice. It spits back to you, not just this, but also that. And you clean that up, and now it's 100% yours. And that whole process might take 20 minutes instead of an hour, because the hour was 30 minutes of you obsessing of the first thing to hit on the keyboard. That's what happens when
And you
people
can
have to
have and you can have ChatGPT write it in active voice, write it in first person.
Yeah.
And it'll come back and redo it again.
You have to tell it that, though. You have to say, do not do passive
That's
voice.
right. That's right. You have to tell it to do that. I'll tell you a great story. Just happened to me yesterday. Last year, I won't go into the specifics too much, but I'll just tell you. Last year, I put in to do a speaking opportunity at a particular conference. And I put the bio in, I put the presentation stuff in, the things you're going to walk away with. I got turned down. In the interim, I got introduced to ChatGPT, and I did exactly what you did. I paid my $20 a month. I shut off the switch that says train the rest of the world on my stuff. So I wanted to build a little bit of a wall between my stuff and the rest of it. I uploaded my full book, articles that I've written, SRT subtitle files from the podcasts that I've done, just like you did, Dave, PowerPoint slides, all this kind of stuff. So then this conference came up. I'll tell you about two conferences. And then I said, okay, this is the conference. Go look at the website. Boom, goes out, comes back, looks at the website. Okay, I need a presentation. Zingo. About a minute later, here comes the presentation. Sure, I made changes. Oh, you forgot to mention this. I put this thing, put my AI. I now have a artificial intelligence management professional credential that I got through an online training program, which is all about the ethics of AI, but which is a real concern because it's being developed so quickly right now that it's a warp drive, and the rest of us are trying to catch up with it. And hopefully the companies that are developing it are keeping that in mind as they develop it. Let's hope. But anyway, it did that, and it did a phenomenal bio, and I submitted, and I got told yesterday it was accepted.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. And I would never, and in retrospect, I started laughing, Dave. I must have laughed for about 10 minutes. It was just one of these things that strikes you funny. And I said, wow, I wouldn't have been able to do this. And then there was another one, I haven't heard back from it, where they actually had a PDF of their future concerns on the website. I downloaded it. There was no problem. I fed that to ChatGPT. And I said, here's their PDF. Let's put a presentation together for this. Bang. In no time at all. And now, to be honest about it, I'm getting ready to put on several online training modules in my leadership perspective, my leadership work, strategic thinking, those kinds of things on Udemy. And I've already outlined it. ChatGPT helped me outline. Now, is there changes? Yeah, there's significant changes to it. There's pieces that I would want to include in it. I couldn't do it. It would take me years, Dave, just to do the outline and to figure out how to pull all the different pieces together from different things that I've done over the course of the last 20 or 30 years. So I'm absolutely on board with you. I absolutely agree. It's an amazing tool. And it takes a one-person show like me. It gives me the helping hand that I need to produce materials in a rapid way based on who I am and what I've done. So I absolutely agree with you. It's just really, it's quite miraculous, to be perfectly honest about it. So let me ask you this question, Dave, as we move along, and that is, tell me about the use of the 80-20 analysis. I'm very curious about that and how you incorporate cognitive science to grow sales and enterprise, bring value to enterprise.
It's about both 80-20 thinking and 80-20 analysis. So 80-20 thinking is this. If you look in your closet, 20% of the clothes that you wear 80% of the time just is. And if you look at your diet, 20% of the foods you eat 80% of the time. because it's part of human nature, and it's not necessarily exactly 80-20. So if there's a statistician out there, they could possibly argue, but it's really true that 80-20 thinking comes about, that if you look at every facet of our lives, that happens. It happens with business, it happens with sports, it happens with anything. 80% of the productivity comes from 20% of the actions. So if you know that from an 80-20 thinking standpoint, you begin to think differently as a marketer and with your sales team. So you begin to work on the 80% of your business that comes from 20% of your prospects and clients. So you then look at that and you say, what that's digging into the analysis. You now get 3 years of sales data. And when we're engaged, we look at 3 years of sales data, and we quickly can come in and we will look at the 80-20 principle, and we'll see that 80% of their business comes from anywhere from 17 to 23% of their customers. That's what it's been with hundreds, if not thousands of customers, clients of ours. And we begin to say, what do those clients look like? What do they think, feel, and smell like with characteristics and attributes? So now we can drill down that target market. One of the 6 right fit target markets is we're looking at current customers, drilling it down, and then creating a profile for prospective customers. So now you know the 3 to 5 characteristics or attributes to be able to go out and look at them. And that's not so much revolutionary. Everybody wants to say they do personas and avatars, but rarely do they go to the lens of saying, I looked at 3 years sales data, we studied it, we saw that this was the 80-20, this was the 20-80, this was the reversal. We get that information. We know who those customers are. We talk to them in one-on-one interviews. So we now gathered insights from them. We know who they were, gathered insights from them, and we then build the characteristics and attributes in the profile. That avatar, that persona is so much more meaningful because we've talked to the people that already fit that profile. And we gathered the 3 to 5 characteristics, and then you can go out and begin to target those people much more efficiently. And your sales team will love it because their confidence goes up because they're like, oh, this is the 3 or 4 attributes that Jim, my best customer, and Suzanne, my second best customer, have. So I'm now talking to Pete and Darlene over here to see that they're similar to that. Those things sound simple and they're straightforward. They take a lot of work, but the key is most people don't even commit to doing it. You and I started this conversation all about commitment and intentionality and the mission statement. You have to commit to doing this and be intentional about 80-20 thinking and 80-20 analysis. Then you'll be able to drive real marketing with the science and math driving the art.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And it just makes so much sense. And you're right. I'm sitting here thinking about my closet, my food, and I'm going, yep, he's right about that. It's the same thing. It just is. It just is. So I really appreciate that. Dave, we're getting close to the end here. So I'd like to ask you my world famous question I've asked people from all over the world. And that is, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it at any issue or problem that you see in the world in which you live and work, what would it be and why did you choose that?
Can I go past and say I didn't choose the humanitarian thing so we can get into something business related? Because obviously if I had a magic wand, there's all kinds of health issues I would solve. So if we're just talking from a business standpoint, once we get past all that humanitarian stuff, if I had a magic wand, my passion would be if we could wave a magic wand and everyone could understand what real marketing is, that it's not just, oh, I do Google ads, or I create Facebook posts, or I do video, or I think advertising is what Don Draper said it was on Mad Men. If we could go and wave that magic wand and have everyone understand what real marketing is, what no bullshit marketing is, that would change their lives and the lives of their 6 right fit target markets that matter. Because when everyone would understand real marketing, we would have less of the garbage content. We would have less of the waste. We would have less of the puffery, less of the deceptiveness. And we would have people actually reaching, connecting, engaging with right fit customers who want what they're selling because they've done the hard work of real marketing. So that's what I would do if I had a magic wand.
Great. It's a great answer. One of the all-time favorite, certainly one of my all-time favorite saying in terms of business, in terms of marketing and sales is, no matter what, just be you. Let people see you.
Exactly.
Represent you. You can't make everybody happy. And you will not appeal to everyone. But there's a population out there probably thinks a lot like you and is looking for value added strategies or value added to what they do every day.
Sure.
So in the end, just be you, represent that in your mission statement, tell people who you are, and just go with it. And I think again, it really is the foundation for great marketing, great strategy, great understanding of effectiveness, and then the tactics follow. How are we going to do that? How are we going to tell people who I am and what we do? And of course, the other thing that I learned from, I'm a devotee of Don Miller's storybook brand philosophy is just don't tell people who you are. Solve problems. Where are they hurting? Where are they hurting? What's their pain? Take their pain away. So I absolutely agree. Dave, this has been a blast. I really appreciate it. Hard to find people who agree with a great deal of my perspective sometimes, but it's great to find you and great to have you here on the podcast. I wish you all the success in the world. Thank you so very much for your time today.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate a kindred spirit.
That's it. Thank you.